This video and the information contained herein are intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. The content provided does not constitute professional career, financial, legal, or investment advice. While we discuss historical trends and potential outcomes within the social media marketing industry, individual results will vary based on effort, market conditions, and prior experience. No specific income levels or employment outcomes are assured. The digital marketing landscape is highly volatile and subject to rapid platform changes. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own thorough due diligence and consult with qualified professionals before making any significant financial commitments or career transitions. Right now, as you watch this, there is an invisible graveyard growing across the United States. It is not a graveyard of people, but of digital certificates. Thousands of ambitious Americans are currently staring at a checkout page for a $2,000 social media marketing course, convinced that this single transaction is the exit ramp from their current career dissatisfaction. They see the advertisements of creators sitting in high-rise apartments in Austin or Los Angeles, claiming that a 6-week curriculum is the only thing standing between them and a life of total geographic freedom. But if we look at historical trends within the U.S. labor market, a different and much more sobering picture begins to emerge. The reality is that the vast majority of these expensive programs end up as nothing more than a line item on a credit card statement and a PDF file that never gets opened after the first 3 modules. We are currently living through a period of massive information arbitrage, where the delta between what a course costs and the actual market value of the information inside is widening every single day. The central question we must answer today is not just whether these courses have value, but whether they have a return on investment that justifies their existence in a 2026 economy defined by generative artificial intelligence, hypersaturated ad markets, and a professional landscape that increasingly ignores credentials in favor of raw, verifiable proof of work. The social media marketing industry in the United States has undergone a fundamental transformation over the last decade. In the early 2010s, simply knowing how to navigate a Facebook Business Manager or schedule a tweet was a rare and billable skill. Today, those basic technical proficiencies are considered entry-level literacy. Yet, the course industry is still largely selling the same how-to-click buttons curricula that worked years ago. This creates a high-stakes scenario for the average American consumer. If you spend $5,000 on a masterclass that teaches you techniques that the algorithms have already moved past, you aren't just losing money. You are losing time, which is the only non-renewable asset in your career. We are seeing a massive influx of participants entering the field, driven by the low barrier to entry. This has led to a race to the bottom in terms of pricing for generalist social media managers. Case studies of successful freelancers in the U.S. market show that those who thrive are no longer the ones who took a course, but those who understand deep funnel economics and consumer psychology. In this deep dive masterclass, we are going to strip away the glossy marketing and the hustle culture rhetoric to perform a clinical autopsy on the social media marketing education industry. This is for the person who is tired of being sold a dream and is ready for a technical breakdown of the reality. We are going to examine why the laptop lifestyle is often a statistical anomaly and how the U.S. tax and legal structure for independent contractors can turn a seemingly high revenue stream into a low profit struggle if not managed correctly. We will explore the certificate trap, where students believe that a digital badge from an unaccredited online guru carries the same weight as a professional certification from established institutions or, more importantly, a portfolio of successful client results. The problem this video solves for you today is the paralyzing uncertainty of the information age. You are likely feeling the pressure to upskill or pivot into the digital economy, but you are surrounded by predatory marketing and conflicting advice. Some people tell you that college is a waste of time and that you should buy their course. Others tell you that everything you need is on YouTube for free. Both are half-truths that ignore the nuance of the professional U.S. landscape. Today, we are providing the framework to help you decide exactly where your capital and your effort should be placed. By the end of this 10-part series, you will not just know if a course is worth it. You will know how to evaluate any educational investment through the lens of a professional strategist. We are going to look at the hard data regarding entry-level salaries in major U.S. hubs compared to the cost of elite training programs. We will dissect the difference between information, which is a commodity, and insight, which is a high-value asset. Consider the case study of the modern U.S. agency landscape. 5 years ago, an agency could survive by offering basic content posting. Today, client expectations have shifted toward measurable revenue attribution. If a course is teaching you how to get engagement, without teaching you how to calculate customer acquisition cost or lifetime value, it is essentially teaching you how to play with toys while the adults are talking about money. This shift in the US market means that the worth of a course is now tied directly to its ability to teach you how to generate a return for a business owner who is currently facing rising inflation and tighter margins. If you cannot prove that your social media efforts result in a bottom-line impact, you are an overhead expense, and in a tightening economy, overhead is the first thing to be cut. We will also address the psychological sunk cost fallacy that keeps many Americans trapped in these programs. When you pay a significant amount of money for a course, your brain is wired to believe it must be valuable, even if you are not seeing results. This prevents people from pivoting to more effective methods of learning, such as apprenticeships or self-directed project building. We are going to talk about the hidden costs of these courses, the additional software subscriptions, the upsell coaching programs, and the expensive mastermind retreats that are often the real product being sold behind the initial low-ticket offer. The promise of this deep dive is total clarity. We are going to provide a step-by-step audit that you can apply to any course curriculum to see if it holds water or if it is just recycled content from free blog posts. We will look at the potential outcomes of the self-taught path versus the guided path, using historical trends of successful digital marketers who entered the field without a formal background. We will discuss why the US market specifically is more competitive than ever, requiring a level of specialization that most broad-spectrum, social media marketing 101 courses fail to provide. This is part 1 of a 10-part journey into the heart of the digital marketing industry. We are not here to give you a yes or no answer. We are here to give you the tools to reach a conclusion based on your specific financial situation, your career goals, and the current state of the US economy. We are moving beyond the surface-level hustle and looking at social media marketing as a serious, technical, and highly demanding profession. If you are looking for a quick fix or a shortcut, this is not the video for you. But if you are looking for a professional-grade analysis of whether you should invest your hard-earned money into a social media marketing course in 2026, then you are in the right place. We are starting with the foundational reality of the market, and from here, we will build a complete picture of the education-to-income pipeline in the United States. To understand the true value of a social media marketing course in 2026, we have to look past the sales page and directly into the engine of the modern United States economy. We are no longer in the era where posting a filtered photo of a latte constitutes a marketing strategy. We have moved into a phase of hyper-technical, data-driven orchestration where the barrier between a professional and an amateur is defined by their ability to navigate complex algorithmic shifts and the integration of generative artificial intelligence. Imagine if you are Alex, a 28-year-old living in Denver, Colorado. Alex has spent the last 3 years working in retail management, but feels the pull of the digital economy. Alex sees an advertisement for a social media marketing masterclass that claims to teach everything from A to Z for a one-time payment of $2,000. The curriculum lists modules on Facebook ads, Instagram growth, and TikTok trends. On the surface, this looks like a comprehensive education. However, if we look at historical trends in the US job market over the last 24 months, we see that the technical skills being taught in these generic courses are being commoditized at an unprecedented rate. By the time Alex finishes the 4th module on how to set up a business suite, the platform has likely updated its user interface 3 times, and the bidding logic for advertisements has been completely overhauled by a new machine learning model. The disconnect between traditional course content and the 2026 reality is what we call the curriculum gap. Most courses are built on a static foundation, while the social media landscape is fluid. In the United States, we have seen a massive shift toward privacy-first data collection. Following the evolution of state-level privacy laws, a marketing professional in 2026 cannot rely on the old ways of granular interest-based targeting. A course that still teaches you to target people based on their specific like of a certain brand is essentially teaching you a dead language. The modern market demands an understanding of broad match optimization, creative-led targeting, and server-side tracking. If a course is not spending at least 30% of its time on the legal and technical implications of US data privacy, it is failing to prepare you for a real-world role at a major American firm. Let us look at a case study of a mid-sized digital agency in Nashville, Tennessee. In early 2025, this agency stopped hiring social media managers who listed course certifications as their primary credential. Instead, They began looking for individuals who could demonstrate a mastery of synthetic media and multimodal AI workflows. They found that graduates of traditional social media courses often lacked the ability to think strategically about brand equity. These students were trained to be content factories, churning out posts without understanding the underlying economics of the business they were representing. This is a critical distinction for anyone in the USA looking to enter this field. You are not being paid to post, you are being paid to solve a business problem. To expand on this, consider the rise of generative video in 2026. A professional today needs to know how to prompt high-fidelity video assets that feel native to a platform like TikTok or the latest immersive social layers. If your course is still focusing on basic graphic design principles in Canva, you are being prepared for a 2022 job market that no longer exists in a high-stakes US environment. Historical trends show that as technology lowers the barrier to creative production, the market value of that production drops. What increases in value is the strategy behind it. You need to know why a specific hook works for a demographic in the Pacific Northwest versus a demographic in the Deep South. Cultural nuance is something that most automated courses fail to teach, because it cannot be easily distilled into a multiple-choice quiz. Step by step, if you were to evaluate a course curriculum today, you should be looking for a deep dive into attribution modeling. In the United States, the average consumer touches at least 7 different digital touchpoints before making a purchase decision. A basic course will teach you how to look at the analytics on a single platform. A professional-grade education will teach you how to use sophisticated software to track the customer journey across the entire ecosystem. This is where the real potential outcomes lie. Those who can prove that a TikTok video led to a search on Google, which led to an email sign-up, which eventually led to a conversion, are the ones who can command high-ticket retainer fees or 6-figure salaries in major hubs like New York City or San Francisco. Furthermore, we must address the shift in the U.S. labor market towards specialized niches. The era of the generalist social media manager is rapidly closing. Imagine if you are trying to market a high-end real estate development in Miami. A general course might tell you to use beautiful imagery and hashtags, but a specialized approach would involve understanding the specific psychological triggers of high-net-worth individuals, the legalities of Fair Housing Act advertising in digital spaces, and how to integrate lead capture systems that talk directly to a CRM. Most mass-market courses are too broad to provide this level of depth. They sell you a wide net when the market is currently rewarding those who use a sphere. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and independent industry reports suggest that while the demand for digital marketing professionals remains strong, the competition is increasingly coming from global talent pools. For a US-based professional to remain competitive, they must leverage their proximity to the US consumer and their understanding of local market dynamics. A course that is marketed globally often misses these subtle US-centric details, such as the timing of major shopping holidays beyond just Black Friday, or the specific cultural shifts happening in American suburban versus urban environments. Let us dive deeper into the economics of the course-to-career pipeline. Historically, many Americans viewed these courses as a replacement for a 4-year degree. While it is true that many tech-forward companies have dropped degree requirements, they have replaced them with a rigorous proof-of-work standard. If you take a course but your portfolio looks exactly like the portfolios of the 5,000 other people who took that same course, you have no competitive advantage. You are essentially a commodity in a saturated market. Case studies of successful career pivots in 2026 show that the individuals who find the most success are those who use a course only as a very basic starting point, and then spend hundreds of hours in the digital trenches building their own projects, testing their own capital, and documenting their failures as much as their successes. So, if the technical information is often outdated and the generalist approach is failing, what exactly are you paying for when you buy an elite social media marketing course? The answer often lies in the hidden infrastructure that these creators rarely talk about in their promotional videos. It is not just about the videos you watch, it is about the systems you are given access to. But even then, there is a massive risk that most people overlook. You might be buying into a system that works for the person selling it, but does it work for a 22-year-old in a small town in Iowa with a total marketing budget of $500? This leads us to a vital realization about the 2026 US market. The tools are now free or very cheap, the information is abundant, but the judgment is rare. As we move forward, we have to ask if these courses are teaching you how to think or just what to click. Because if they are only teaching you what to click, you are essentially training to be replaced by a script. But what if there was a way to bypass the guru industrial complex entirely? What if the most valuable lessons are not found in a login area, but in the very datasets that the platforms are trying to hide from the casual user. In the next part of this masterclass, we are going to pull back the curtain on the shadow curriculum. We will explore the specific data metrics that the top 1% of US agencies use to make decisions, and why these metrics are almost never mentioned in the courses you see advertised on your feed. We are also going to look at the specific legal traps that new social media managers in the US are falling into, traps that could not only cost you your career, but could lead to significant financial liabilities. You cannot afford to miss the breakdown of the contractual death trap in Part 3. To understand the true weight of the contractual death trap, let us look at the story of Sarah, a digital marketer in Austin, Texas, who launched her freelance career in early 2026 after completing a popular $3,000 online bootcamp. Sarah was technically proficient in creating short-form video content and understood the basic mechanics of the Meta and TikTok ad suites. She landed her first major client, a regional health supplement brand based in the Midwest. The contract they sent her was 30 pages of dense legal jargon. Like many graduates of standard social media marketing courses, Sarah had never been taught how to read a master service agreement or a statement of work. She saw a monthly retainer of $5,000 and signed immediately. 3 months into the contract, Sarah used a trending audio clip in a high-performing promotional video. She had been taught by her course that using trending sounds was the primary way to achieve organic reach. However, the course failed to distinguish between a personal account and a commercial entity. The record label representing the artist of that song issued a cease and desist followed by a significant copyright infringement claim against the brand. Because Sarah had signed an indemnification clause without understanding it, she was legally and financially responsible for the brand's legal fees and the eventual settlement. The $5,000 a month she was earning was instantly wiped out by a single legal mistake that her social media course had glossed over in favor of teaching her how to use an AI caption generator. In the United States in 2026, the legal landscape for digital creators is a minefield. The Federal Trade Commission has significantly updated its endorsement guides to keep pace with synthetic media and AI-generated influencers. If you are managing a social media presence and you do not understand the specific requirements for clear and conspicuous disclosures, you are not just a marketer, you are a liability. Many high-ticket courses focus on the aesthetics of the feed, but they fail to provide the foundational knowledge of the United States legal system as it pertains to advertising law. They do not teach you about the Lanham Act or the specific state-level privacy regulations like the CCPA or its successors that dictate how you can and cannot use consumer data for retargeting. This knowledge gap is where most new social media managers fail. They enter the market thinking they are in the content business, only to realize they are in the compliance and risk management business. Beyond the legal traps, we must investigate what high-level agencies in New York and Los Angeles call the shadow curriculum. These are the metrics and strategies that actually drive a business's bottom line, but are rarely mentioned in the introductory courses sold to the masses. Most courses will spend hours teaching you about return on ad spend, or ROAS. In the professional agency world of 2026, ROAS is often viewed as a vanity metric, because it is easily manipulated by platforms to make their performance look better than it is. Instead, professional strategists focus on the marketing efficiency ratio, or MER. Imagine if you are managing the accounts for a fashion startup in Seattle. Your Meta dashboard says you are getting a 4-to-1 return on your ad spend. In a standard course, you would be told to scale that budget immediately. However, an elite strategist looks at the MER, which is the total revenue divided by the total marketing spend across all channels. They might find that while the Meta ads look good, the overall business is actually losing money because the customer acquisition cost is higher than the initial margin on the product. The shadow curriculum involves understanding the contribution margin after all variable costs, including shipping, labor, and platform fees. If a course isn't teaching you how to read a profit and loss statement, it isn't teaching you how to be a social media marketer in the US. It's teaching you how to be a professional button pusher. Another critical element of this 2026 shadow curriculum is incrementality testing. Historically, marketers simply looked at which ad someone clicked last before buying. Today, with the fragmentation of the US media landscape, we need to know if that customer would have bought the product anyway without seeing the ad. This is the difference between being a cost center for a client and being a profit partner. Case studies of top-performing US agencies show that they spend as much time on data science and attribution modeling as they do on creative production. They are using sophisticated holdout tests to prove their value to skeptical chief financial officers. This level of technical depth is almost entirely absent from the course industrial complex because it is difficult to sell as a dream. It is hard work, it involves heavy math, and it doesn't look good in a promotional montage. We also have to consider the fiscal reality of being a social media professional in the United States. Many courses promote the idea of a high-revenue freelance business without explaining the 15.3% self-employment tax that catches thousands of new entrepreneurs off guard every April. They don't explain the necessity of structured quarterly tax payments or the legal benefits of an S-corp election versus a standard LLC once you hit certain revenue thresholds. Imagine if you are Mark, a new freelancer in Chicago who earns $100,000 in his first year. Mark spends $80,000 of that on a lifestyle he saw in a course's testimonial video, assuming his taxes will be minimal. By the time his accountant explains his actual liability, Mark is in a financial hole that takes years to climb out of. This lack of business literacy is a systemic failure in the social media education space. The 2026 market also demands a mastery of the first-party data revolution. Since the degradation of third-party cookies, the most valuable asset a U.S. brand can own is its own customer list. A professional marketer today must understand how to build and nurture an ecosystem that moves users from rented land, like Instagram or TikTok, onto owned land, like email lists or proprietary community platforms. This involves understanding technical integrations between social platforms and customer relationship management systems. If a course is only teaching you how to get more followers, they are teaching you how to build a mansion on sand. The value of a social media presence is increasingly measured by its ability to feed a data-driven sales funnel that functions even when the social algorithms change. Furthermore, we are seeing the emergence of brand lift studies as a standard requirement for mid-market U.S. companies. These are not just about clicks, they are about measuring shifts in consumer perception and intent. This requires a background in market research and survey methodology that most online gurus simply do not possess. They are selling you a playbook from 2022, while the market is demanding a strategic partnership for 2027. Step by step, the industry is moving away from management and toward consulting. This shift means that the worth of a course is now dependent on its ability to turn you into a business consultant who happens to use social media as a tool, rather than a social media manager who hopes to understand business. As we look at the historical trends of the last few years, it becomes clear that the people making the most money in this industry are those who have mastered the skills that cannot be easily automated. AI can write a caption, it can generate an image, and it can even optimize a bidding strategy. But AI cannot sit in a boardroom in Manhattan and explain to a CEO how a shift in cultural sentiment in the Midwest should change their entire product development roadmap. It cannot navigate the delicate legal and ethical nuances of a brand crisis. This brings us to a critical crossroads in our masterclass. If the courses aren't teaching the legal protections, the deep funnel economics, or the data science-backed strategy, then why do so many people still swear by them? There is a secret reason why even the most worthless courses occasionally produce a superstar, and it has nothing to do with the videos inside the members area. In the next part, we are going to dissect the community leverage phenomenon and the network arbitrage that happens behind the scenes. We will also reveal the specific list of questions you must ask a course creator before you give them a single dollar. Questions that will make 90% of them hang up the phone. But more importantly, we are going to look at the dead pool of social media niches, the specific industries in the USA that are currently a no-go zone for new marketers due to extreme saturation and declining margins. You might be planning to enter the one niche that is about to collapse. That breakdown is coming up in part 4. We are entering a period in the United States where the generalist social media manager is effectively a walking ghost in the machine. In 2026, the market has reached a point of hypersaturation in what we call the dead pool of niches. These are specific industries where the cost of customer acquisition has risen so high, and the margins have become so thin, that traditional social media management is no longer a viable business service. If you are looking at a course that tells you to target local real estate agents, small gym owners, or independent coffee shops, you are being sold a map to a dry well. Historical trends in the US over the last 3 years show that these small-scale service providers have moved toward all-in-one AI automation platforms. These platforms handle lead nurturing, automated posting, and basic community management for a fraction of the cost of a human freelancer. Imagine if you are Chloe, a marketing graduate in Charlotte, North Carolina. Chloe follows the advice of a popular 2026 course and tries to pitch a $3,000 monthly retainer to a local real estate agency. She is met with a polite rejection because the agency already uses an integrated system that generates its own property videos, writes the captions, and manages the ad spend based on real-time market data from the MLS. Chloe's course didn't prepare her for the fact that in a high-interest rate environment, these businesses are cutting every non-essential cost. To them, a social media manager who just posts pretty pictures is a luxury they can no longer afford. The second sector in the debt pool is the low-ticket e-commerce space, specifically dropshipping or generic private label products. The U.S. consumer in 2026 is fatigued by the constant barrage of identical-looking ads. The cost per 1,000 impressions on platforms like TikTok and Instagram has increased significantly, making it nearly impossible to turn a profit on a $20 product if you are paying for professional management. Case studies of successful agencies in 2026 show that they have completely abandoned these low-margin clients in favor of enterprise-level accounts or high-ticket service providers, where the lifetime value of a customer is high enough to absorb the rising costs of digital advertising. So, if these niches are dead, why do courses still teach them? It is because these niches are the easiest to explain to a beginner. It is much easier to teach a student how to post for a local bakery than it is to teach them the intricacies of medical legal compliance for a national telehealth brand or the regulatory hurdles of financial services marketing in the United States. This brings us to the first major question you must ask a course creator. Can you provide an audited breakdown of the industries your current students are actually finding success in? If they point you toward real estate or local brick and mortar, they are likely teaching you a model that is on its last legs. Another critical question for the 2026 environment is about the instructor's own skin in the game. You must ask, how much of your own capital have you managed in the U.S. market in the last 90 days? The digital landscape moves so fast that a strategist who hasn't been in the ad accounts for 6 months is essentially a historian, not a practitioner. They are teaching you based on a snapshot of an algorithm that no longer exists. You need to see proof of recent management of at least 6-figure monthly budgets to know that they understand the current bidding logic and the nuances of the 2026 attribution models. Beyond the technical skills, there is a hidden reason why some people actually see results from these expensive courses, and it has almost nothing to do with the video modules. This is the phenomenon of network arbitrage. In the United States, your professional trajectory is often determined by the rooms you can enter. Many high-ticket courses are essentially high-priced entry fees into an exclusive Discord or Slack community. Within these circles, people share what is currently working, the specific ad hooks that are passing the latest platform filters, the new AI tools that are actually saving time versus just being gimmicks, and, most importantly, client referrals. Imagine if you are James, an aspiring marketer in Phoenix, Arizona. James buys a $5,000 masterclass. He finds the videos to be basic, but the community contains 300 other agency owners who are all testing different strategies. One member discovers a specific way to structure TikTok shop campaigns that bypasses a common fulfillment bottleneck. James implements this immediately and sees a massive shift in his clients' results. He didn't pay for the information in the course, he paid for the collective intelligence of the community. This is why a course with a high price tag and a low number of students is often more valuable in the US market than a cheap course with 50,000 students. In the cheap course, the information is instantly commoditized. In the expensive one, you are buying a competitive advantage. However, there is a dark side to these communities. They can often become echo chambers where the blind lead the blind. If the community is filled with people who are all trying to use the same outdated templates, you aren't gaining an advantage. You are just participating in a slower race to the bottom. You must investigate the quality of the community. Is it filled with veterans who are managing million-dollar accounts? Or is it a sea of beginners all asking how to set up their first business manager? If it is the latter, you are paying for a support group, not a professional network. Step by step, the way to evaluate the worth of a social media course in 2026 comes down to its focus on 3 pillars: creative strategy, data infrastructure, and business consulting. If the course spends more than 20% of its time on how to use the specific buttons on a platform, it is a waste of money. In 2026, the platforms are designed to be intuitive enough that a teenager can run an ad. The value is in the creative strategy, understanding the psychological triggers that stop the scroll in a world of AI-generated noise. It is in the data infrastructure, ensuring that every dollar spent is tracked through a server-side setup that satisfies US privacy laws. And it is in the business consulting, being able to look at a client's entire sales process and identify why the social media traffic isn't converting. The historical trend is clear. The United States market rewards depth over breadth. The generalist is being replaced by the specialist who understands a specific vertical with surgical precision. If you are going to invest in a course, it should be a course that teaches you to be the absolute best in a narrow, high-value field. Instead of a social media marketing course, look for a performance creative course for the biotech industry or an influencer procurement course for the luxury automotive space. But even if you find the perfect niche and the perfect community, there is one final hurdle that stops 95% of American marketers from ever reaching a sustainable income. It is a psychological trap that is built into the very way we consume digital education. It is called the information trap, and it is the reason why people keep buying course after course without ever actually launching a campaign. In the next part of this masterclass, we are going to break down the specific neurobiology of why your brain wants you to keep learning rather than doing. We will also look at the exact equipment and software stack you need in 2026 to be considered a professional in the USA, and why most of what you think you need is actually a distraction. We will also reveal the truth about the white label agency model that many courses promote, and why it is currently the fastest way to lose your reputation in the American market. You need to see the reality of the middleman economy in Part 5. The white label agency model is often marketed in high-ticket social media courses as the ultimate shortcut to scaling. The pitch is seductive. You act as the salesperson, land a high-paying US client for $3,000 a month, and then hire a contractor from a lower-cost labor market for $500 to do the actual work. You pocket the $2,500 margin without ever having to open an ad manager or edit a single video. In the early 2020s, this arbitrage model had some legs because of the massive information gap between business owners and the digital landscape. However, by 2026, the white label model has become a primary driver of reputation destruction in the American market. To understand why, let us look at the case study of Ryan, an aspiring agency owner in Columbus, Ohio. Ryan followed a course that emphasized sales over skill. He successfully pitched a regional law firm on a comprehensive social media strategy. Following the course playbook, Ryan outsourced the content creation and ad management to a white label provider he found online. The problem began when the law firm, which is subject to strict state bar advertising regulations, noticed that the content being produced was generic, lacked local nuance, and most critically, failed to include mandatory legal disclaimers required in the state of Ohio. The white label contractor, who was managing 50 other accounts, simply used a standard template that worked in a different country but was a massive liability in the US. When the law firm was flagged by the state bar, they didn't blame the contractor, they blamed Ryan. In a world where every business owner now has access to basic AI tools that can audit work quality, the unskilled middleman is being squeezed out. Ryan didn't just lose the client, he lost his credibility in the Columbus business community. The historical trend in 2026 is moving toward radical transparency. Clients are no longer just buying a result, they are buying the expertise of the person they are talking to. If you cannot explain the technical why behind a strategy during a midweek check-in call, you are a liability to the client. This leads us directly into the information trap, a psychological phenomenon that keeps thousands of Americans stuck in a cycle of perpetual learning without ever reaching the implementation phase. From a neurobiological perspective, when you buy a new course and watch the introductory modules, your brain releases a significant amount of dopamine. This creates a false sense of accomplishment, often referred to as productive procrastination. You feel like you are moving forward because you are consuming high-level information about the US digital economy, but in reality, you are just a spectator. The course industrial complex relies on this. They know that a high percentage of students will never complete the curriculum, so they front-load the most exciting and visionary content to keep the dopamine levels high, while the refund window is still open. Imagine if you are Sophia in Atlanta, Georgia. Sophia has spent over $7,000 on 4 different social media marketing courses in the last year. She knows more about the theory of viral hooks and the history of the TikTok algorithm than most professional practitioners. However, she has never actually run a paid campaign with her own money. She is paralyzed by the fear of imperfect execution. This is the information trap in action. The solution is a fundamental shift in how you approach education. In 2026, the most successful practitioners in the United States follow a ratio of 1 hour of learning to 4 hours of implementation. If you are not breaking things in a real ad account, you are not learning. You are just watching a very expensive documentary. To break out of this trap, you need to understand the professional equipment and software stack required in 2026. Many courses will tell you that you only need a laptop and a dream. While that makes for a great advertisement, the reality of the US professional landscape is much more demanding. To be taken seriously by mid-market American brands, your technical infrastructure must be robust. This starts with hardware. You aren't just looking for a laptop. You need a machine capable of handling multi-stream 4K video rendering and running local AI models for data processing. In 2026, this typically means a high-end workstation or a MacBook Pro with the latest silicon, paired with a minimum of 64 gigabytes of unified memory. But the hardware is only the foundation. The real differentiator in 2026 is your attribution software. Because the standard platform dashboards are increasingly inaccurate due to privacy regulations and the death of the third-party cookie, professionals are moving toward third-party attribution tools like Triple Whale or Northbeam. These tools provide a truth set of data by aggregating information directly from the Shopify or e-commerce backend and matching it with ad spend. If you are trying to manage a brand's growth using only the Meta or TikTok dashboard, you are flying blind. A course that doesn't teach you how to set up server-side tracking and an external attribution engine is essentially teaching you how to play a professional sport with a blindfold on. Furthermore, the creative stack has evolved. In 2026, knowing how to use Canva is no longer a specialized skill. It is the baseline. To stand out, you must master the integration of generative AI creative tools into a cohesive workflow. This involves using platforms like Midjourney for high-fidelity asset generation, Runway for video manipulation, and 11 Labs for localized voice synthesis. Step by step, the workflow in a top-tier US agency involves generating dozens of AI-assisted creative variations, testing them in a low-spend environment to find a winning hook, and then scaling the winners with human-led polished production. This hybrid approach is what historical data shows is currently driving the highest engagement in the US market. We also have to discuss the physical environment of the modern social media professional. The idea of working from a beach in Bali is a common trope in course marketing, but the reality of managing high-stakes US accounts often requires a dedicated, high-speed environment. In 2026, latency is a competitive disadvantage. If you are managing a live-stream shopping event for a brand in New York, while you are on a spotty Wi-Fi connection in a different time zone, you are risking thousands of dollars in potential revenue. The professionals who are actually winning are often operating out of dedicated offices with redundant fiber optic connections and professional-grade monitoring equipment. The question of whether a course is worth it often boils down to whether it provides you with a blueprint for this technical reality, or if it is just selling you a version of the industry that existed 3 years ago. If the course spends its time talking about organic growth and hashtags, it is ignoring the fact that the US social media landscape in 2026 is almost entirely pay-to-play. The potential outcomes for someone who masters the technical stack are significant, but the outcomes for the person who remains an amateur are increasingly bleak. As we look at the data, we see that the most successful digital marketers in the United States are those who treat their education like a technical trade, not a lifestyle choice. They are the ones who spend their weekends reading API documentation and testing new tracking scripts, rather than just scrolling through motivational content. This leads us to a crucial realization. The barrier to entry has never been lower, but the barrier to success has never been higher. There is an invisible force that is currently wiping out even the most technically proficient social media managers in the United States. It isn't a lack of skill or a bad client. It is the rise of the invisible gatekeepers. In the next part of this masterclass, we are going to dive deep into the world of platform compliance, shadow banning, and the automated flagging systems that can terminate a 10-year-old business account in seconds. We will look at the specific steps you must take to protect your client's assets and why the compliance-first strategy is the only way to survive in 2027. We will also reveal the one document that every social media manager must have but that 99% of courses never mention. You cannot afford to skip the breakdown of the Compliance Fortress in Part 6. The Compliance Fortress is the invisible shield that separates the professional social media strategist from the amateur course taker. In the United States in 2026, the digital landscape is no longer governed solely by human moderators who can be reasoned with via a support ticket. We have entered the era of generative moderation and behavioral fingerprinting. Platforms now use sophisticated neural networks to scan every pixel of an ad, every word in a caption, and every metadata tag in a video file to look for patterns that might violate their increasingly opaque community standards. If you are operating on these platforms without a rigorous compliance framework, you are essentially driving a high-performance vehicle without insurance on a road full of automated speed traps. Let us look at a case study involving Michael, a 34-year-old marketing director for a high-end sustainable furniture brand based in Dallas, Texas. In mid-2026, Michael was overseeing a campaign that had successfully generated over $400,000 in revenue in just 3 weeks. The creative was polished, the attribution was accurate, and the return on spend was exceptional. However, Michael's brand was using a third-party scheduling tool that had its API access revoked due to a minor technical violation on the tool provider's end. Because Michael had linked all of his clients' primary social assets through this single, compromised point of entry, the platform's automated security systems flagged his client's entire business manager as a potential security risk. In an instant, the ad accounts were disabled, the organic pages were restricted, and the revenue stream was cut to zero. Michael had taken several high-priced social media courses that taught him how to scale spend and how to write high-converting copy, but none of them had prepared him for the automated executioner. He spent the next 14 days in a desperate cycle of submitting appeals that were rejected within seconds by an AI bot. This is the reality of the US market in 2026. When an account goes down, the financial loss is not just the ad spend. It is the loss of momentum, the loss of historical data, and the potential permanent banning of the brand's digital identity. Historical trends show that as platforms lean more heavily into AI for moderation, the false positive rate for account terminations has increased by nearly 40%. This brings us to the one document that every professional social media manager in the USA must have, yet 99% of courses never mention: the Social Media Continuity and Disaster Recovery Playbook. This is not a simple list of passwords. It is a comprehensive technical and legal document that outlines exactly how a brand will maintain its digital presence in the event of a platform-wide outage or a specific account restriction. A professional strategist presents this document to a client during the onboarding phase, signaling that they understand the high-stakes nature of the American digital economy. The first section of this playbook involves the technical architecture of the compliance fortress. Step by step, a professional does not simply use a single personal profile to manage multiple business assets. In 2026, the standard practice for U.S. agencies is to utilize isolated environments. This means using a dedicated, clean device or a secure virtual machine that is only used for account management, preventing any cross-contamination from personal browsing habits or unsecured third-party applications. If your personal account gets flagged for a comment you made on a news post, you cannot allow that to compromise your client's multi-million-dollar business manager. Furthermore, the playbook must detail the structure of the administrative hierarchy. A common mistake taught in basic courses is to give the client or a single manager full administrative access to everything. In a professional U.S. environment, we follow the principle of least privilege. Every individual on the team is granted the absolute minimum level of access required to perform their specific job function. We also ensure that there are at least 2 verified, high-trust backup administrators who are not linked to the same physical location or IP range. This prevents a single localized security event from locking everyone out of the system. Historical trends in 2026 have also shown the rise of what is known as creative compliance. Modern AI filters are trained to detect even subtle hints of non-compliant claims. For example, in the wellness or financial niches, using words like improve or increase without specific, peer-reviewed data to back them up can trigger an immediate flag. A professional strategist uses a pre-flight compliance checklist for every single piece of content. This involves running captions and scripts through an internal AI model that is trained specifically on the latest platform terms of service to identify high-risk phrases before they ever reach the platform's servers. Imagine if you are managing the social media for a fintech startup in San Francisco. A course might tell you to use aggressive hooks to drive clicks. But if those hooks are interpreted by the platform's AI as making unsolicited financial advice or promise-like statements, the potential outcome is a permanent ban. The professional understands that in the U.S., the intersection of platform policy and federal regulations like those from the SEC or the FTC is a razor-thin line. Step by step, the compliance fortress also includes the implementation of hardware security keys. In 2026, standard SMS-based two-factor authentication is considered insecure and easily bypassed via SIM swapping, a crime that has seen a resurgence in major U.S. cities. A professional requires every person with access to the business manager to use a physical security key. This one technical requirement alone can prevent 95% of account takeovers. If a course is not emphasizing physical hardware security as a baseline requirement, it is setting you up for a catastrophic failure. Another critical element of the 2026 landscape is the audit log. Every action taken within a business manager must be documented. If an ad is rejected, the professional doesn't just delete it and try again. They document the rejection code, the specific creative that was flagged, and the outcome of the appeal. Over time, this creates a proprietary data set that allows the strategist to predict platform behavior with much higher accuracy than any generic course could offer. This data-backed approach to compliance is what allows high-level U.S. agencies to maintain account health for years, even in high-risk industries. When you are evaluating the worth of a social media course, look at how much time they spend on the what if things go wrong scenarios. If the course is 100% focused on growth and 0% focused on protection, it is a dangerous investment. In the American market, longevity is the ultimate competitive advantage. Those who can stay on the platform while their competitors are getting banned are the ones who ultimately win the market share. But even with a perfect compliance fortress, there is another layer to the social media marketing industry that is undergoing a radical shift in 2026. It is the very way we value our time and price our services. The traditional monthly retainer model is dying, and a new, much more lucrative, but much more demanding model is taking its place. If you are still charging clients a flat fee for 3 posts a week, you are leaving thousands of dollars on the table and making yourself easily replaceable by a basic AI script. In the next part of this deep dive masterclass, we are going to explore the new pricing psychology of 2026. We will look at how the top 1% of US freelancers are moving toward value-based billing and performance equity. We will break down the exact mathematical formulas you need to use to calculate your worth to a business, and how to pitch a deal where you get paid based on the revenue you generate, not the hours you work. We will also reveal the client red flag list, the specific types of American business owners you should never work with, no matter how much they offer to pay. You cannot afford to miss the shift from service provider to profit partner in Part 7. The shift from a service provider to a profit partner is the most significant psychological and financial evolution you will face in the 2026 United States digital economy. Historically, the social media marketing industry was built on the monthly retainer model. You would charge a client $2,000 or $3,000 a month to manage their accounts, post a set number of times per week, and perhaps run a few basic ad campaigns. But in 2026, this model is a relic of a less sophisticated era. With the proliferation of generative artificial intelligence and automated content scheduling, the perceived value of posting has plummeted toward zero. If you are still selling hours and post counts, you are competing with an algorithm that costs $20 a month. To remain relevant and highly paid in the American market, you must move into value-based billing and performance equity. Imagine if you are David, a 31-year-old marketing strategist operating out of a co-working space in Austin, Texas. David spent 3 years as a traditional social media manager, charging 5 local businesses a flat fee of $2,500 a month. He was making a decent living, but he was capped. He couldn't take on more clients without sacrificing quality, and his clients viewed him as a monthly expense to be scrutinized during every budget meeting. In early 2026, David decided to pivot. He realized that for one of his clients, a high-growth sustainable apparel brand, his social media strategies were responsible for nearly 40% of their new customer acquisitions. David stopped billing for his time and started billing for the value of the growth he was facilitating. Step by step, the transition to value-based billing requires a deep audit of the client's existing business metrics. You cannot price based on value if you do not know what a customer is actually worth to the business. David sat down with the founder and looked at their historical trends. He discovered their customer acquisition cost was $45, and their initial average order value was $95. However, the true insight was in the lifetime value. On average, a customer acquired through social media spent $300 with the brand over 18 months. David realized that every customer he brought in wasn't just worth $95. They were worth $300 in total revenue. Instead of asking for a flat retainer, David proposed a performance equity model. He lowered his base fee to $1,000 a month to cover basic operational costs, but negotiated a 5% share of all revenue generated directly through social media attribution channels, plus a bonus for every 10% decrease in the customer acquisition cost he achieved over a 6-month period. Case studies of this specific pricing structure in 2026 show that it aligns the interests of the marketer and the business owner perfectly. David was no longer a cost, he was an investment. In his first month under this new model, David's total compensation doubled, because he focused exclusively on the high-leverage activities that drove sales, rather than just filling a content calendar with fluff. This is where the math of the profit partner becomes undeniable. In the United States, mid-market companies are increasingly willing to pay for results because they are tired of the agency-client friction inherent in the retainer model. But to succeed here, you must master the logic of the gross margin. If a product costs $20 to make and sells for $100, the business has $80 of gross margin. If you spend $40 on ads to acquire that customer, the business has $40 left to cover overhead and profit. As a profit partner, you are managing that $40 spread. If you can use creative strategy and data optimization to bring that ad spend down to $30, you have just increased the business's profit by 25%. This is the language of the C-suite, and it is a language that almost no entry-level social media marketing course is teaching. However, moving into this model requires you to become extremely selective. In the 2026 US market, there is a specific list of American business owners you should never work with, because no matter how much they pay, they will destroy your reputation and your sanity. These are the red flag clients. First on the list is the micromanaging skeptic. This is the owner who wants to approve every single word of every single post, but has no background in psychology or digital trends. They are paying you for your expertise but treating you like a keyboard for hire. In a performance-based model, this client is a disaster because their interference will actively lower the results you are trying to achieve, which directly lowers your pay. Second is the no-data founder. If a business owner cannot tell you their current conversion rate, their cost of goods sold, or their churn rate, you cannot be a profit partner for them. You would be building a house on a foundation of fog. Without clean data, you cannot prove your value, and without proof of value, you cannot command premium fees. Third is the budget drain savior. This is the business owner who is 3 weeks away from bankruptcy and views you as a magic bullet that will save their company. Historical trends show that these engagements almost always end in failure. Marketing is an amplifier. If the underlying business model is broken or the cash flow is non-existent, no amount of viral content will save it. To navigate these conversations, you need to understand the psychology of the high-value sale. In 2026, the pitch is no longer about what you will do. It is about the transformation you will lead. When David speaks to a new prospect, he doesn't talk about Instagram or TikTok. He talks about scalable revenue units. He asks the owner, if we could acquire 500 new customers this month at a 30% profit margin, what would that do for your ability to hire or expand? This shifts the focus from the technical task to the business outcome. Step by step, you are training the client to see you as a peer in their growth, not a subordinate. Furthermore, we are seeing the rise of the hybrid retainer. This is where a U.S. professional charges a base fee that covers their cost of living, and then layers on a percentage of the total marketing budget managed or a percentage of the growth in the email list. In 2026, first-party data is the ultimate currency in the USA. If you can prove that your social media efforts grew a brand's SMS list by 10,000 qualified leads, you have created a permanent asset for that company. A professional pricing model should reflect that long-term value. When you look at a social media course today, ask yourself if it gives you the tools to calculate these complex financial arrangements. Does it provide you with contract templates that include performance-based clauses? Does it teach you how to read a balance sheet so you know if your client is actually healthy enough to pay you a percentage of their revenue? If the answer is no, then the course is only teaching you half the job. It is teaching you how to play the game, but it isn't teaching you how to keep score or how to get paid like a champion. The historical data from the US freelance market is clear. The top 1% of earners are not the ones who work the most hours. They are the ones who have the highest impact per hour. By shifting your pricing psychology, you are moving into that top tier. You are moving away from the commodity market and into the expert market. But there is a technical wall that even the best price profit partners hit. It is the wall of the AI content paradox. As more businesses use AI to create more content, the effectiveness of that content is reaching a point of diminishing returns. In the next part of this masterclass, we are going to dive into the human-centric creative revolution of 2026. We will look at why the most successful US brands are actually moving away from hyper-polished AI content and back toward raw, unfiltered human connection. We will break down the exact 3-part framework for creating content that feels unbottable, and how to use this to beat competitors who are relying purely on automation. We will also reveal the attention arbitrage opportunities that are currently hidden in the most underrated platforms in the US. You are about to see why everything you were taught about quality is actually hurting your reach in Part 8. The year 2026 has introduced a phenomenon that many United States digital marketers are calling the Polish wall. Over the last 24 months, the mass adoption of generative video and photo tools has led to a digital ecosystem where every image is symmetrical, every voice is perfectly modulated, and every background is a flawless interior designed by an algorithm. For the average American scrolling through their feed in a suburb of Phoenix or a high-rise in Chicago, this perfection has become a signal for noise. We have developed a subconscious filter that identifies high production value as an immediate indicator of an advertisement. This is why the very definition of quality that most 2024-era social media courses still teach is actually the primary reason your content is being ignored today. Imagine if you are Emily, a freelance strategist working with a sustainable footwear brand based in Seattle. Emily spent $3,000 on a course that taught her the technical art of high-conversion video production. She invested in a high-end mirrorless camera, a 3-point lighting setup, and professional color grading software. She produced a series of 30-second spots that looked like they belonged on a national television network. The potential outcomes looked promising on paper, but when the ads went live in the 2026 US market, the click-through rates were abysmal. The audience viewed her polished masterpieces as corporate propaganda. They did not feel a connection, they felt marketed to. Emily's breakthrough came when she ignored her course training and leaned into the human-centric creative revolution. She took the same shoes, went to a local park in the rain, and recorded a 60-second clip using the front-facing camera of an older smartphone. She did not use a microphone. You could hear the wind and the traffic. She spoke directly to the camera about the difficulty of keeping white sneakers clean in the Pacific Northwest. She made a mistake in her sentence, laughed, and kept going. This raw, lo-fi video outperformed her $3,000 production by a factor of 8. Why? Because in a world of AI-generated perfection, the human flaw has become the ultimate trust signal. Historical trends in 2026 show that the US consumer is actively seeking out what we call the evidence of humanity. This is a 3-part framework that you can apply to any creative strategy to bypass the AI fatigue filter. The first pillar is contextual identity. This involves grounding your content in a specific time and place that an AI struggles to replicate authentically. For Emily, this meant showing a local Seattle landmark in the background or referencing a specific weather event that happened that morning. When a viewer sees that the creator is existing in the same physical reality they are, the psychological wall drops. The second pillar is strategic imperfection. This is the deliberate choice to leave in the elements that a professional editor or an AI would typically remove. This includes the subtle verbal fillers, the slightly off-center framing, or the natural variations in lighting as clouds pass by. These are not mistakes, they are authenticity markers. Case studies from top US performance agencies in 2026 show that ads featuring a person in a messy home office often convert at a 20% higher rate than those in a sterile studio environment. The messy background provides a narrative that the audience can relate to. It suggests that the person speaking is a real human being with a real life, not a generated avatar in a digital vacuum. The third pillar is the compressed feedback loop. In 2026, social media is no longer a broadcasting platform. It is a conversation. A professional does not just post a video and walk away. They use the content as an opening move. Emily started a series where she would take a specific customer question from the comments and record a video response within 30 minutes of the comment being posted. The low production value was proof of the speed and the personal attention. This created a level of brand loyalty that no high-budget commercial could ever buy. This shift in creative standards is also opening up massive attention arbitrage opportunities on platforms that the traditional coarse industrial complex often ignores. While 90% of new social media managers are fighting for scraps on the hyper-saturated bidding markets of TikTok and Meta, the professionals are looking at platforms like Pinterest and LinkedIn through a new lens. In 2026, Pinterest has evolved into a powerhouse for high-intent, long-form video content in the US. Because the platform's algorithm prioritizes utility and inspiration over raw entertainment, the shelf life of a video on Pinterest can be months or even years, compared to hours on a standard feed. Case studies of US-based home decor brands show that a single well-placed, low-production tutorial on Pinterest can drive consistent traffic for a fraction of the cost of a Meta ad. The same is true for LinkedIn, which in 2026 has become the primary destination for founders to build personal brands. The US professional class uses LinkedIn not just for networking, but for discovering the stories behind the products they buy. If you are a social media manager who understands how to translate a brand's mission into a raw, text-heavy narrative on LinkedIn, you are tapping into a high-income demographic that is largely underserved by the video-first gurus. Step by step, if you were to audit your creative strategy today, you should be looking for the ratio of polished to raw content. We are seeing a trend where a 20/80 split is the most effective. 20% polished brand assets for the top of the funnel, and 80% raw, human-centric content for the middle and bottom. This is a complete reversal of what was taught just 3 years ago. The reason is simple. The US market is currently suffering from a crisis of trust. Between deepfakes and automated bot accounts, the American consumer is looking for reasons to believe that the business on the other side of the screen is legitimate. The worth of a social media marketing course in 2026 is therefore tied to whether it teaches you the psychology of connection or just the mechanics of production. If a course spends weeks teaching you how to use professional cinema cameras but zero time on how to write an authentic, vulnerable script that resonates with a specific American subculture, it is training you for a world that no longer exists. You are essentially learning to be a technician in an industry that is moving toward being a psychologist. Furthermore, we must address the cost of this creative shift. Ironically, it is much cheaper to produce human-centric content, but it is much harder to conceptualize. It requires you to actually know the product, the customer, and the culture. You cannot outsource this to a white-label contractor in a different time zone who does not understand the nuances of the US Midwest or the specific slang used in Southern California. This is why the profit partner model we discussed in the previous part is so critical. You are being paid for your brain and your cultural intuition, not your ability to use a ring light. We are reaching the end of the technical breakdown of the 2026 social media landscape. We have looked at the legal traps, the pricing shifts, and the creative revolution. But there is one final question that every aspiring marketer in the United States must face. It is the question of the agency versus the solo consultant. Most courses tell you that the goal is to build a massive agency with dozens of employees. But in the age of AI, is that actually a smart move, or are you just building a house of cards that will collapse under its own overhead? In the next part, we are going to look at the lean agency model of 2026. We will break down how to manage 10 high-ticket clients with a team of only 2 people, by leveraging the specific AI automation workflows that the top US agencies are keeping secret. We will also reveal the truth about the exit strategy. Can you actually sell a social media agency in 2027? Or are you just building a job for yourself? We are diving into the economics of the exit and the scale in Part 9. The traditional image of a successful social media marketing agency in the United States involves a sprawling office in Manhattan or Santa Monica, filled with rows of Gen Z content creators, project managers, and account executives. For years, the dream sold in high-ticket courses was to scale your headcount as a badge of honor. But as we move through 2026, that model has become a financial anchor for many. The rise of sophisticated cognitive automation has shifted the goalposts from how many people you employ to how much revenue you generate per employee. We are now seeing the emergence of the lean agency, a model where a team of 2 or 3 people can effectively manage 10 to 15 high-ticket American brands by leveraging a vertical AI stack that handles the repetitive, low-leverage tasks that used to require a dozen juniors. Imagine if you are Marcus, a digital strategist based in Denver, Colorado. Marcus spent years trying to build a traditional agency, but his margins were constantly squeezed by the high cost of talent and the overhead of professional insurance, office space, and employee benefits. In 2025, he liquidated his physical office and transitioned to a lean agency model. Today, Marcus and one lead creative director manage 12 clients, each paying a $5,000 monthly retainer. That is $60,000 in monthly recurring revenue with nearly 80% profit margins. Marcus didn't achieve this by working 80 hours a week. He achieved it by building a custom automation engine that acts as his virtual workforce. Historical trends show that the most significant bottleneck in any US agency is the creative-to-client feedback loop. In a traditional setup, a content piece is drafted, sent to a manager, edited, sent to the client, revised, and finally posted. This process can take days. Marcus uses a 2026 workflow that collapses this timeline. Step by step, his system begins with an automated intake process. When a client wants to launch a new campaign, they fill out a structured brief that is immediately ingested by a custom-trained large language model. This model has been fine-tuned on the specific brand voice, past performance data, and the current cultural trends within the US market. Within minutes, the AI generates 5 different creative concepts, complete with script outlines for short-form video and visual prompts for synthetic media generation. From there, the workflow moves to the production phase. Marcus uses an API-connected creative suite that generates high-fidelity visual assets based on the approved concepts. He doesn't need to hire a freelance graphic designer for every post because he has built a library of proprietary brand templates that the AI can manipulate based on the specific requirements of the campaign. The only human intervention needed is for Marcus's creative director to spend 30 minutes reviewing and polishing the AI-generated assets to ensure they hit the strategic imperfection signals we discussed in Part 8. This workflow allows 2 people to produce the volume of content that used to require a team of 6. The second pillar of the lean agency is automated reporting and attribution. In the United States, clients in 2026 are more data-savvy than ever. They are no longer satisfied with a PDF screenshot of their Instagram likes. Marcus's agency uses a data warehouse that automatically pulls real-time information from the client's Shopify backend, their Meta ad account, and their third-party attribution software. Every Monday morning, the client receives a video summary where a voice-cloned version of Marcus explains the key metrics, the wins from the previous week, and the tactical adjustments for the next 7 days. This entire reporting process is automated, saving Marcus 20 hours of manual data entry and client calls every single month. But the real question for anyone evaluating a social media marketing course is the long-term play. Are you building a business? Or are you just building a high-paying job for yourself? Historically, social media agencies have been notoriously difficult to sell in the American market. When the founder leaves, the clients often follow because the relationship was built on the founder's personal brand or individual expertise. This is known as a high keyman risk. If you want to build a sellable asset in 2027, you must focus on building a machine, not a personality. Case studies of recent agency acquisitions in the US show that the agencies fetching the highest valuation multiples are those with documented, automated SOPs, standard operating procedures, and a high degree of client stickiness. If you can show a potential buyer that your agency can function profitably without you being involved in the day-to-day creative production, you are no longer selling a service, you are selling a cash flow machine. Most service businesses in the USA sell for a multiple of 2 to 3 times their sellers' discretionary earnings. However, lean agencies that have integrated proprietary AI workflows are starting to see multiples as high as 4 or 5 times EBITDA, because they resemble software companies more than traditional service firms. To achieve this, you must avoid the trap of the generalist. Imagine if Marcus tried to manage a dentist in Florida, a car dealership in Maine, and an e-commerce brand in California. His automation would fail because the datasets and creative requirements are too diverse. By focusing exclusively on high-growth sustainable apparel brands, Marcus's AI engine becomes more intelligent with every client he adds. The data from one campaign informs the strategy for the next, creating a moat of proprietary insight that a generalist competitor simply cannot match. This is what we call network intelligence. In 2026, the value of your agency is not just in your clients, but in the data you have collected and the efficiency of the systems you have built to process that data. Furthermore, we have to look at the exit strategy from a legal and contractual perspective. Many Americans starting out in this field fail to include a change of control clause in their client contracts. This means that if you sell your agency, your clients have the legal right to terminate their agreements immediately. A professional social media marketing course that is actually worth its salt should be teaching you how to structure your contracts so that the business remains an attractive and transferable asset for a buyer. You should be building with the end in mind from day one. The potential outcomes for a lean agency owner in the US are profound. You have the ability to generate mid-6 figures or even 7 figures in profit, while maintaining a level of lifestyle design that was impossible in the previous era of high-overhead agencies. But this requires a fundamental shift in your identity. You are no longer a content creator, you are a systems architect. You are building an infrastructure that happens to produce social media marketing results. Step by step, the roadmap for 2026 involves mastering the specialized niche, automating the creative and reporting workflows, and documenting every process so that it can be handed over to a manager or a buyer. If the course you are looking at is still telling you that success is about hiring more people and getting a bigger office, they are leading you toward a 2018 outcome in a 2026 world. The future of American business is small, agile, and hyper-automated. We have now covered the technical, legal, creative, and financial architecture of the social media marketing industry. You have seen the traps, the hidden opportunities, and the massive shift in how value is created and captured in the United States. We have performed an autopsy on the industry and looked at the data-backed reality of what it takes to thrive. But there is one final piece of the puzzle. It is the decision-making framework that will tell you once and for all if a specific course is the right move for your unique situation. In the final part of this masterclass, we are going to perform the ultimate ROI audit. We will put everything we have learned into a clinical step-by-step checklist that you can use to evaluate any program. We are also going to reveal the shadow path, the exact way to acquire all of these skills and this network without ever spending a single dollar on a masterclass. You are about to see the definitive verdict on whether a social media marketing course is worth it in the USA, or if the industry is simply selling you a map to a place that no longer exists. The final conclusion is coming up in part 10. To arrive at the definitive verdict on whether a social media marketing course is worth it in the United States in 2026, we must perform the ultimate ROI audit. This is a cold, clinical calculation that strips away the emotional appeals of the sales page and looks at the hard math of your career trajectory. Imagine if you are Jordan, a 33-year-old living in Chicago, who has $5,000 saved and a burning desire to leave a corporate job in logistics. Jordan is at a crossroads. One path leads to a high-ticket masterclass touted by a prominent influencer. The other is the shadow path, a self-directed trial-by-fire journey through the raw data and documentation of the platforms themselves. To determine which path Jordan should take, we must weigh the cost of the course against the three primary pillars of professional value: curation, access, and implementation. The first pillar is curation. In 2026, we are drowning in information but starving for insight. All the technical knowledge you need to manage a Meta or TikTok ad account is available for free within the platform's own documentation and engineering blogs. However, these documents are thousands of pages long and updated almost weekly. A high-value course is essentially an insurance policy against time. You are paying for someone else to have read the 5,000 pages of API updates and distilled them into the 5 pages that actually matter for a US-based e-commerce brand. Historically, the potential outcomes for those who use curated knowledge are faster entry into the market, but the risk is that they never learn how to find the information themselves. If you are paying $5,000 for a course, you should be saving at least 200 hours of research. If your hourly rate is currently $25, that curation is worth exactly $5,000. It is a break-even trade. The second pillar is access. As we discussed in Part 4, many elite US-based courses are actually gated communities. If the course Jordan is looking at provides a direct line to veteran media buyers managing $10 million a month in spend for major American retailers, then the $5,000 price tag is a bargain. In the professional world, one piece of insider information regarding a shift in the way TikTok handles attribution can save a client $50,000 in a single weekend. That kind of access is rarely found on the shadow path. However, if the community is simply a group of 5,000 other beginners all asking the same entry-level questions, the access is worth zero. You are not buying a network. You are buying a support group. In the 2026 US market, the ability to rub shoulders with people who are 3 steps ahead of you is the only reason to pay a premium for education. The third pillar is implementation. This is where most courses fail. They teach the what and the how, but they don't force the do. This leads us to the shadow path, the exact roadmap that the top 1% of US marketers use to bypass the guru industrial complex entirely. If Jordan chooses the shadow path, he does not spend $5,000 on a course. Instead, he spends that $5,000 as a tuition fee to the platforms themselves. Step by step, the shadow path looks like this. First, Jordan spends 30 days mastering the free certifications from Meta, Google, and TikTok. These are the technical baselines. Second, he takes $2,000 of his savings and launches his own project, perhaps a small niche e-commerce site or a lead generation brand for local services in Chicago. By spending his own capital, Jordan learns the visceral reality of signal loss, ad fatigue, and conversion rate optimization. He feels the sting when an ad set fails and the rush when a creative hook goes viral. This is blood on the tracks learning that no video module can replicate. Third, Jordan documents every single experiment in a public-facing case study. By month 3, he has a verifiable track record of managing spend, navigating compliance, and generating a return in the real 2026 US economy. Historical trends show that a recruiter or a business owner in Austin or San Francisco will almost always hire the person with a raw, documented case study over the person with a PDF certificate from an online guru. The verdict for 2026 is this: A generalist social media marketing course is almost never worth the investment. The information is too commoditized, and the pace of change is too fast for a static curriculum to remain relevant. If the course is teaching you how to use the buttons on the screen, save your money. However, a specialized high-tier masterclass that focuses on a specific high-value vertical, such as performance creative for U.S. healthcare or data infrastructure for enterprise SaaS, can be an incredible accelerant. You are not buying a career, you are buying a specialized toolset and a high-level network. For the average American looking to break in, the hybrid approach is the most effective. Use the free documentation for the technical foundation, use your own capital for the implementation, and only then, once you have hit a ceiling that you cannot break through on your own, should you invest in a high-level mastermind or a specialized course to gain the specific insight you are missing. The market in 2026 does not reward the most educated, it rewards the most effective. Imagine if Jordan had spent the $5,000 on a course and finished it in 6 weeks. He would have a certificate, but he would still have zero experience managing real money. Now, imagine the Jordan who spent $2,000 testing his own ads. He has $3,000 left in the bank, a functioning sales funnel, and a portfolio that proves he can perform under pressure. Which Jordan would you hire to manage your business? The answer is obvious. The social media marketing industry in the United States is currently undergoing its most radical transformation since the inception of the smartphone. The old ways of managing accounts are being eaten by AI, while the new ways of strategic profit partnering are creating a new class of digital millionaires. The worth of a course is entirely dependent on which side of that divide it puts you on. If it treats you like a student, it is a cost. If it treats you like a business owner, it is an investment. We have reached the conclusion of this 10-part deep dive. You now have the legal framework, the pricing psychology, the creative strategy, and the ROI audit needed to navigate the 2026 landscape with total clarity. You are no longer a target for predatory marketing. You are a professional analyst of your own career. But understanding the education gap is only the first step. The real game in 2026 is moving beyond social media entirely and into the world of integrated attention infrastructure. While everyone else is arguing about which course to buy, a small group of US-based strategists is quietly building something much more powerful. A system that doesn't just manage social media, but controls the entire digital identity of a brand across every AI-driven touchpoint in the American home. In our next series, we are going to break down the Omni-Intelligence Blueprint and show you how to dominate the platforms that are replacing the search engine. You are not going to want to miss the first look at the post-social world in our upcoming deep dive.